Alrighty, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Evangelical Dark Web. Tonight, we are going to be discussing uh, the Daily Wire, the news regarding Jeremy Boring, the fall of conservative Inc., as I like to call it. And we're going to be diving into kind of like a lot of different stories, kind of doing some inside baseball on what's going on in the landscape. I have some pretty provocative takes. I do believe that in some ways conservative media is dead. It is over, and I apologize for being a little late on this stream. I have a new laptop, and my old computer just decided not to work, and it is just now finished rebooting. But I have a new laptop that I've never done any video recording, anything like that on. So we're giving this a test run with my existing equipment, but so hopefully everything's good on the tech side tonight. But vision's a little weird on my end because I'm used to bigger screens and displays right now than what a laptop has. But when I go to Texas in a couple weeks and I need to record something, hopefully this works out really well. So that's the plan for tonight. We're gonna do some live fire, and we're gonna break down the Daily Wire story. So Jeremy Boring is out of the Daily Wire. You wrote an article about this, so how about you kind of lead us through this story? This has been something that's been brewing for a long time now, and it's finally come to fruition because there's a lot of rumors that have been circulating about the Daily Wire, about the financial health of the company, specifically because of the Pendragon cycle, which is Jeremy Boring's baby, which has allegedly caused a lot of financial strife with the company. So, how about you break down that story for a
Yeah.
second?
So I mean, if we go back to the whole Brett Cooper departure scandal, that's when there were initial grumblings and rumors about potential financial problems happening at the Daily Wire. Because let's be honest, they parted ways over money, and obviously, when you astroturf someone, you think all of a sudden you can keep them for the cheap, and when you give someone 3 million subscribers that they didn't really earn or deserve or work hard to get, but now they have 3 million subscribers, well, all of a sudden that 3 million is a lot of negotiating power relative when your channel size is relative to Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, and pretty much the biggest names at Daily Wire. So obviously they parted ways with Brett Cooper over the money situation, and they failed to maintain adequate ratings and monetization of the existing channel by replacing her with Reagan Conrad. But yeah, at that time there were reports that the Pendragon cycle was 50 million over budget. Now, again, 50. Let's assume that the budget was in and of itself $50 million. Daily Wire reports, and again, Axios is like that go-to outlet that Jeremy Boring seems to have a connection with, and I don't want to say leaks these memos to Axios, but if Daily Wire wants to break news, it seems like there's a tendency for them to rely on Axios, which is where the story about Jeremy Boring's departure broke. And they previously reported through Axios that Daily Wire makes $200 million in revenue. So a company that size should not be financing a major production of a TV show of that caliber. Because again, if you look at the Pendragon cycle stuff, it looks like they're putting some quality behind it, but that quality comes with a giant price tag, especially since they're filming overseas in, I want to say, Croatia and Italy. So they are putting a lot of money behind that project. It does seem like it's trying to be high value television,
Do
and
they have
but
any big names attached to it?
um, my understanding is they have some veterans from like Game of Thrones, Witcher, and shows like that. Obviously, Brett Cooper was ironically playing Merlin's wife, but I presume they're done filming because that project has been delayed for quite some time now. It's supposed to release this year, but it was supposed to release last year until they delayed it. So they're in some form of post production.
So let me go back to the revenue part because Ian Carroll, who's a pretty famous YouTuber, he was recently on Joe Rogan. I'm not overly familiar with him, but apparently he's a noticer's noticer, and he talked about how uh, the Daily Wire was trying to sell itself, to Fox News, and that was a completely fake
Yes.
story.
And keep
And
in
he
mind,
also
where was
mentioned
that?
that they wanted Tim Pool to buy the Daily Wire, which I'm
Which
not
I don't.
sure how he has the money to do that because
Yeah.
didn't he also have money
I thought
problems?
they were trying to buy him. But I mean,
Yeah,
I don't think that detail in Ian Carroll's narrative is correct. But obviously, they did have some negotiations with Tim Pool on some level. I would imagine that part is true, but I don't imagine that Tim Pool would have been a buyer, unless he was some kind of an investor, which that might make sense. I mean, he does allege that Boring and Shapiro both had to pony up to invest into the Daily Wire. Now, again, this is Axios that reported that Daily Wire raised capital in 2024. So Ian Carroll, even though he's operating completely on rumor, and I'm sure he has some kind of sources,
yeah, he has sources.
the
My source
the
was able to confirm the Jeremy Boring news, but
the
nothing else.
but again, we have independent reporting from Axios, which again has a connection to Daily Wire that has validated a that they make $200 million a year in revenue, two that they did raise outside capital for growth projects. And that's the article. It's like Daily Wire eyes growth in 2025 or something like that. So they raised capital, which makes no sense for a company their size at a valuation of over $1 billion. And that was kind of part of the, and he did in that interview or that article hint at the Fox News interest.
The
So
Axios guy did.
the Axios article from December of 2024 mentions Fox News having an interest in buying podcasts. So, and Boring saying we're not closed off to it. So the idea of Jeremy Boring trying to start a rumor, which is Ian Carroll's accusations, does have some circumstantial corroboration from, again, a media source that colluded with the Daily Wire.
Okay, so you mentioned. I also liked how you mentioned that the Pendragon Cycle series is such an expensive endeavor, and you compared it to a lot of shows of the past. You compared it
Yes.
to,
So let me read off the list.
yeah,
I
read off
said
the list. That was a really good part
HBO's
of the article.
HBO's Rome. That was the most expensive TV show at the time it was made. That's also why
Around
they
2006.
yes, that's also why they stopped making it. Game of Thrones, the most expensive TV show after that. Then you have the Borgias that was canceled because it was too expensive and it was garbage, especially when they made a lot of historical inaccuracies dealing with the immorality of Pope Alexander and the Borgia popes. The Witcher, huge financial boondoggle for Netflix that they completely botched. House of the Dragon, that's an obvious expensive TV show. And Rings of Power is the most expensive TV show of all time as of right now. So again, all of these are fantasy shows, and Pendragon is like a King Arthur, Camelot legend. So again, that's going to be a high budget
Fantasy slash medieval
yeah.
period piece.
So it's gonna be a high
Or
budget TV show.
in the case of Rome, ain't Sword and Sandals. So I'm curious how expensive the House of David show is, especially since I think the concept trailer for that broke on Lore TV a few years ago. Uh, but anyway, that's a slight digression. But yeah, the Daily Wire is trying to get into expensive, very expensive TV programming, which is a bold risk, but I do got to defend Jeremy Boring a little bit because I believe that Conservative Inc. is a transitionary, and it is a transitionary phenomenon.
Well, and
So
keep in mind, they can't afford that TV show on their revenue. That's not cash flow. That's total revenue. If that show is like 10 to 25% of your revenue, you can't afford that. You have to raise outside capital to make that kind of a production.
yeah, and the idea that this is going to be what brings in subscribers for regular revenue to compete with Netflix, again, very bold strategy, but I think Jeremy Boring actually he went with the what probably was the best strategy that the Daily Wire could do to ensure long-term success. The problem is his execution has been abysmal. The Daily Wire and Jeremy Boring is he's not a god king, he's a drama queen. That is who Jeremy Boring is. He is someone who loves to pick fights. He is someone who loves to wade into drama. He is someone that will denounce his own writing staff because they wrote an article he didn't like, and that's what he did with The Chosen to defend, Dallas Jenkins and that Hollywood production. Uh, he denounced his own writer for writing about the gay flag scandal over there. He loves to pick fights with Jason Whitlock, Candace Owens. There's a lot of people that Jeremy Boring loves to pick fights with. And that is not conducive to what the Daily Wire needs. And then we can talk about the creative direction. I agree that, going into the creative direction was the long-term strategy for the Daily Wire, because I believe that the Daily Wire, the Blaze, and Fox is a dying entity, but the Daily Wire and the Blaze, they're transitional to what is going to be a wild, wild west of uh, right of center media. It's going to be the Wild West
Well, I might.
because there are no barriers to entry to podcasting. Absolutely zero. Everyone and their mother can have a podcast if they want to, and anyone can monetize a podcast. I mean, Evangelical Dark Web, we don't have a very large podcast audience. We're mostly on YouTube, but again, we have some of the best we have very, very good numbers for our podcast compared to what it was a few months ago. So it's a very easy, I don't want to say it's easy to grow, but I can grow a podcast putting no effort into growing the RSS feed for the audio podcast other than putting it on my newsletter. So anyone can do it. And if you have talent, it will grow even organically with very little effort involved. And the Daily Wire and the Blaze, they both kind of fall into this category of they are making investments in people that a lot of times they don't pay off. Whereas the Wild Wild West, you either make it or you don't. And things like the Blaze and Daily Wire, they're at best serving as transitions for people to go from being small to mid to large. But they're not very good for the people that are large now, because those people won't have ownership and they can make more money off platform, like Brett Cooper, like Candace Owens.
No, even Matt Walsh, you're seeing a lot of people say, yeah, even Ian Carroll mentioned it. Yeah, but Matt Walsh would be successful on his own. Perhaps he'd be even more successful.
Yeah, and he would be more successful because here's the thing about Matt Walsh. The bread and butter of getting Matt Walsh to stay is the Hollywood aspect, which is why I think Jeremy Boring was right to go down that path. Again, his execution was horrendous.
Well, and another example of independence is Tucker Carlson. Like a lot of people would say, well, Tucker had more impact when he was on Fox News speaking to boomers and all of that, and speaking to that specific audience. But when he's now on his own, he's speaking to a much different audience, and that audience probably has better quality of return than a bunch of boomers that are watching Fox News every night. As in, like, more powerful people will actually be listening to Tucker Carlson on his own rather than would have watched him on Fox News at 8 o'clock.
Well, I think that's also a reflection of who a more powerful audience has changed. I think
No,
it was
I'm
true that
talking about
Fox News was
actual. No, I'm talking about actual people that are in the power to make decisions. Actual decision makers, not just average Joes, but actual decision makers. Listen to Tucker Carlson now more than they would have at Fox News.
I mean, I think there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, Tucker Carlson, I believe, was like the only thing going for Fox News's YouTube account. And we'll get into some YouTube numbers in a little bit, because, when you're talking about how Conservative Inc. is sort of a dying carcass, like it's held up by personalities. Like
Well,
Matt Walsh does not need the Daily Wire. You are absolutely right about that. Ian Carroll is right about that. Matt Walsh could make more money on his podcast outside of the Daily Wire because he does not have to then split commissions on ads and live reads with the Daily Wire. So when you don't have to split the commission, and the Daily Wire wants their return on investment. So I don't know what the commission split is, but it's going to be
There might not
lucrative
even be
enough
any.
for.
It might not be any commission split. It might just be a flat amount, provided you do the work, and they get all the commissions from the ads.
Okay. Yeah, exactly.
That was what the Crowder contract was.
Right. So the Daily Wire needs to monetize it. So they're paying you up front as a contract and all of that. And if they make money off of your show, that means that that the live reads that you could have been getting on your own, they got all that money from, and you, again, it's not always the case, but it is the case if you're a large content creator like Matt Walsh, he would make more money because he would keep all the revenue from his live reads without the Daily Wire.
Yes.
Instead, there's some sort of system where the Daily Wire monetizes him to get a return on investment. But unless that return on investment is less than what they're paying, so unless the Daily Wire is losing money on Matt Walsh, making him overpaid, then Matt Walsh has no incentive to leave. I don't think Matt Walsh is overpaid. He's not. This isn't like an Adam Sandler movie or the Dwayne Johnson who's getting like $50 million for a movie.
Well, I mean,
What is a
woman actually did was a very successful box office, and so was Am I Racist? So
because it was low budget.
Well, I mean, $3 million and $12 million box office. So yes,
yeah.
That's a success.
And yeah, that gets into a whole problem with the movie industry is they're making too many expensive things, which the Daily Wire is not correcting that.
Yeah, I mean, well, and again, I'll push back on the Hollywood thing is because I don't think you should mix the business angle with the politics angle, which even like companies that own both, like Disney owns ABC and ESPN, they still keep a lot of their media segments separated. They don't combine them, even though they're under the same corporate umbrella. The same goes with HBO or Warner Media, which owns HBO, which owns CNN, which owns a couple other outlets as well. They keep it all separate.
Well, HBO Max does not keep CNN separate anymore. Well,
I'm not saying like they don't keep it separate, but they don't treat it the same as they treat HBO. It is a distinct brand. Warner movies are distinct from the CNN brand, even though there might be some overlap. They'll show CNN in a Warner Media movie, but they are separate brands. And Daily Wire would just basically taint anything that's associated with it as far as a movie or a TV show goes.
I'll push back on that a little bit. So The Simpsons, Family Guy, and all that were under Fox's brand.
But Fox is also legacy media.
Right, but their brand never tanked because they were associated with Fox News.
But they also were local over-the-air television.
Right, I'm just saying the same company name was on each program.
But it probably inhibited their ability to transition into streaming, which is why Fox had to offload a lot of their stuff.
For Fox News. Well, yeah, they had some weird ownership things going on with that, and then they sold 20th Century Fox to Disney. But nonetheless, there is the ability to make controversial news content and also make more artistic content. So there's a lot going on here. I think here's the thing. The Daily Wire needs a way to incentivize people to stay when they're big enough to be able to make it on their own. And I believe that the Hollywood angle was the only way to get people like Matt Walsh to stay. Oh, we'll make some movies for you. We'll make that easy for you. Or The Blaze is currently doing conferences for, say Jason Whitlock and Ali Stuckey. Both of those people don't need The Blaze. No, Jason Whitlock has a successful YouTube
Whitlock
platform. Whitlock is very killing it on YouTube. And I don't know how great his podcast ratings are because he's in between politics and sports, and he's just kind of doing his own bro podcast. And when he's not talking about Caitlin Clark or women's basketball, it's great. It's great content. This is me saying he talks about that way too much. But anyway, it's great content otherwise. Or Ali Stuckey, I'm not overly familiar, but she's carved out. She's one of the leading women podcasters in the conservative ink space. She doesn't need The Blaze. The Blaze has invested a lot in female content creators lately. They're trying to boost Sarah Gonzalez, and I'm not sure how well that's going. Maybe we can check on the stream tonight how well her YouTube channel is doing. And then they got Liz Wheeler, who has bounced around a little bit in conservative ink. So I'm not sure why Liz Wheeler took a deal with the Blaze, but the Blaze deals are probably a lot different than the Daily Wire deals in that it's more of a licensing kind of deal. Uh,
Well,
so
but going back to the Hollywood angle, I mean, you could make it work. I mean, technically, Daily Wire says it's owned by Bent Key. Like Bent Key is the parent company, Daily Wire is the LLC that's underneath. And theoretically, and Bent Key as a streaming service is technically a separate entity than Daily Wire. Though if you get Daily Wire All Access or whatever, you get the Bent Key as well.
have
So
you ever had Daily Wire?
no,
Okay, I wasn't sure. I know you've had like
don't
I've had the
blame.
Blaze. My Blaze subscription expired, and the thing is, there's no value proposition to the Blaze. You can watch all the good stuff on YouTube. There's not enough extra content that's worth paying for. And the value proposition basically became I want to support the movement, but they don't exactly support the movement to me. That because they're the Blaze is too scattered. They got people like Dave Rubin, they got people like Glenn Beck, Steve Dace, again, who's more agreeable to someone like me, and then Aaron McIntyre, who might be the most agreeable to someone like me. So there's not really a value proposition to paying for that. And the live stream, the app sucks. So the app sucks. You can't cast the app onto a TV to watch it live if you wanted to do that. And you can get that on Pluto TV if you wanted to watch it live, so you don't have to pay for that. Or you could watch it on YouTube for free. So there's no value proposition to paying for it unless you just really believe in the cause.
Yeah, it's like a super chat.
Yes. And, it's what, $120 a year, kind of expensive. And because there's so many disparate voices, you might not like all of the voices. You might find some of them alienating. So a lot of people can make a lot of money just support if they were on their own and they weren't tied to the baggage of other people. Now with the Daily Wire, it's a little bit more closely aligned. Like how much of a stone toss is Matt Walsh to Michael Knowles?
Well, I mean,
I don't know. I'm
a
just
lot of their content might have heavy overlap in terms of what they're talking about on any given day. So, and again, maybe that's just the nature of the news cycle, but at the same time, comparatively to the Blaze, each show would offer something different. And yes, they might cover the news, but they are distinct versus, a lot of the Daily Wire shows, or at least their major pundits, are generally covering the news coverage in mostly similar fashion. Obviously, Matt Walsh is different than Knowles, who's different than Shapiro. But again, their formatted shows are very similar in how even if the personality is different.
now I want to talk about another angle to this story because again, I'm defending Jeremy Boring's intent. I think his execution was terrible. I think we can all agree the Daily Wire's creative direction was terrible. Mr. Burcham was horrendous.
Yes.
Lady
Well,
Ballers was horrendous. Gina Carano's feminist story didn't get positive reviews for a reason. And
and part of the problem
the other
is
one.
if you want to be successful from his position in Daily Wire, your business makes $200 million a year. And, from
That's
where
good.
he's at, he should be pursuing, first of all, your studio should be entirely an independent entity, but you should be pursuing a Blumhouse strategy, which is you're going to make movies on the cheap and you're hoping for a knockout home run. And that's what, Blumhouse has done successfully in Hollywood. They make a lot of like interesting movies. They might not be billion-dollar box offices, but they're kind of made on a budget and there's a lot of creativity that goes into them. Some of them are hits, some of them are not. A24 is another studio that kind of operates in that more budget movie category. And
Yeah.
that would be the strategy to pursue, but he didn't quite do that with trying to do Pendragon Cycle. And the other
Right.
thing is you need a buyer for that, like a Netflix to back that kind of project.
They're trying to do the Apple TV thing, but
Yes,
I don't again, Apple first of all has more cash than they know what to do with as a company. so
Oh,
they can afford these projects.
but it's also a giant loss leader for Apple.
Right, it's their vanity project, but they can afford it because this is Apple. They have more cash and they could buy Disney outright if they wanted to. Like they are flushed with cash.
I mean, even Amazon learned that you could just do like Jeremy Clarkson. You could just reboot the Top Gear with or call it Grand Tour, and that would be your best TV show. And again, reality TV works because it's cheap,
Yeah, only
not
reason.
necessarily because it's good.
So this is an interesting question about ratings. Do you think conservative viewership has decreased since Trump made it into office, or is the hype of Trump's bold executive actions keep up viewership? I wish I had a better take on this question. I've gotten a little less into watching Conservative Inc. political podcast. I watch Aaron McIntyre's stuff because and I watch some Whitlock as I've referenced, but I don't watch a whole lot of conning podcast. So I'm not very good at answering this question. Uh, you have a take on this?
I mean,
Does this
obviously,
type of space does Conservative Inc. thrive as opposition media?
I mean, we're going to see that in the future, certainly. I mean, January is generally going to be a little bit more of a lull in terms of the month. I will say, if you look at podcast numbers like surrounding the Zelensky Trump White House debacle, you're going to see a huge spike in like Ben Shapiro's podcast on that day. So I do think there's certain news events that will definitely trigger spikes in conservative viewership. I'm not quite sure long term what the landscape is for overall market size. I mean, maybe that's why you see a lot more people talking about Andrew Tate because they need something to kind of like drive ratings.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the people glomming onto him are clout chasing, like the Hodge twins. I think they're clout chasing. Uh, So yeah, there's a lot going on there. I'm not the best. I don't know their ratings outside of things like YouTube because podcast ratings are a little hard to look up, and you can get a sense of who is number one in certain categories and stuff like that. And apparently, Ben Shapiro is still doing really well. The Morning Wire, which is a Daily Wire program, is doing really well, and Matt Walsh is doing really well. So they have some programs that are doing really well, but only Ben Shapiro's attached to the Daily Wire, and the Morning Wire is kind of the show that the Daily Wire launched to and launched successfully, and it
Well,
can't exactly leave them.
and one important thing with like the podcasting space in general is it's shifting more towards high trust authenticity as being the key driver, not necessarily daily political news from your favorite pundit. So long form interviews, discussions, subject matter experts coming in and talking about something for an hour seems to be the path going forward. You're seeing like Martyr Mate, Joe Rogan, a lot
Tucker
of
Carlson is
Tucker
tapped
Carlson's.
into this.
Yes. So I think that is the landscape going forward. I mean, and of course, Ben Shapiro used to do that more with like Sunday specials, but I do think that might be more the future. So in the interim, you have to be so even though people might not be as tuned into the daily happenings of Donald J. Trump, podcasters that are able to be like experts and do a lot of segments and be speak to the actual culture, not necessarily the news, will do very well.
Yeah, and here's the thing that's why I think conservative media is dead because they can't make someone successful. Like Brett Cooper was already sort of on her way up. They astroturfed her at the Daily Wire, but she was on her way up. Like she was getting a lot of publicity. They astroturfed her into something much bigger than what she was, but then she was big enough to leave. And she wasn't going to split the commissions anymore. She can take the whole thing. And what they're left with is the comment section as a YouTube channel, which gets under 1% subscriber views on videos. Like 1% on a good day. And those views have gone down.
And
So
a good amount of them are probably trolls commenting about Brett Cooper and Daily Wire and the drama and calling her like a bad bridesmaid or whatever.
so so here's something that I go with for YouTube. If you want to judge a channel's health, you want to look at the views, the view count per video. That is to me the most uh that is the metric that you can judge the health of a YouTube channel with. And it's also why I don't want to like get a bunch of subscribers from one video, because then that might hurt my views long term. I'd rather like consistently grow rather than spike growth, because you can see a lot of unhealthy channels that have a lot of subs, but they don't get any views on videos, which means these channels have no core audiences. They just captured a bunch of subscribers off of some good content at one point and nothing else. Reagan Conrad, she was always doomed to fail taking over the comment section because she is using a carcass channel that had 3 million subs, and she can't get that on her own. She didn't earn those subscribers, so those subscribers aren't going to watch her. And they did her dirty like that. If they had started a new channel, this is Reagan Conrad's channel, and she would have a much healthier YouTube channel and maybe even more views and not less and not fewer
Well,
views.
I mean,
But
it goes to show Jeremy Boring should have taken a play out of the Andrew Tate playbook and had multiple women on the comment section. That way, neither one or the other is the top dog on the
I mean,
channel. But
if
you want to
I
ask your
also
women, but you don't want to actually be a pimp to like manage it all.
I'll ask an over under. Would Reagan Conrad have more than 40,000 views on a given video if she started her channel from scratch? If the Daily Wire started a new channel for her from scratch?
I think she would have, but keep in mind, I would not say she would peak over Brett Cooper on her
Oh no,
own.
I'm not getting crazy here.
40,000, I'll say yes.
Well, yeah, and that's really all I need for my argument here, because
But again,
you're
she doesn't have that
working.
Ben Shapiro sister comment in her comment section every single time. But she would have the simp vote.
I
Maybe not as hard, maybe
No,
not as much.
no.
This is the
Sorry,
internet. This is the internet.
it is the
This is
internet,
the internet.
but I
You're gonna
I
have
don't see it. I'm just saying. I'm not trying to
I'm
be
not saying
mean.
I see it either, but you would have a lot of
I can
people
see it with Brett Cooper,
you would have a lot of people.
but I don't see it with Reagan Conrad. Just I'm not trying to be mean. But with that said, let's look at the Blazes lineup real quick. Let me get my share screen on. The Blaze has a lot of people on it, right? So, Glenn Beck, he needs the Blaze. He is the Blaze. Mark Levin, I think, needs the Blaze to do anything outside of radio. Jason Whitlock does not need the Blaze for anything other than throwing a conference once a year.
Yeah, I mean, he is a very successful podcaster. He's also probably the most different than all the others, considering he does a lot of sports.
Are you saying he's black?
Oh no,
just kidding. He's the only black guy on here.
Oh,
so
that is also true, but
so he stands out for that reason. Steve Dace, I think, actually needs the Blaze. I think he has not set up a YouTube presence that that he can just exit the Blaze and be better off. So that's my opinion on that. Again, maybe that's on him and not the Blaze, but I think he pairs very well with the Blaze because he came from the old world of terrestrial radio and transitioned with the Blaze. So he fits in nice. It's a nice fit, but he has not gotten too big for the Blaze.
And in some sense, his format as a show does inhibit his ability to succeed on YouTube.
Yeah, it might be that, but yeah. And he hasn't, because he hasn't succeeded on YouTube, he has done really well in the audio podcast space, but he hasn't succeeded on YouTube enough. And, he's had to like launch a new channel and stuff like that. And on Facebook. And so he has some social media problems that aren't entirely his fault. A lot of it's big tech censorship, but yeah, I think he still needs the Blaze, but Ali Stuckey does not need the Blaze. She is like top 15 last I checked in the Conservative Inc. podcast rankings. She doesn't need the Blaze. And maybe she does that conference she does, and the Blaze provides a service that she could use. Here we got the mandate. This is a Blaze show that
all three of them
all three of them
would be no names if without. And again, I mean, what's her face in the
they
middle?
need Jill Savage.
Yeah, she's all. I mean, yeah, she comes with that name recognition, but she is a little bit north of 30. Then she's unmarried, which
She's unmarried. I thought she got married.
Oh, she did. Okay, I take that back. I haven't watched Ace in a year, so I haven't actually seen her on. But she is a little north of 30, so she needs the Blaze.
I think this show needs the Blaze because they can't make it without the Blaze. This is something that the Blaze is trying to ask. They're trying to make some people, which is their job. This is Conservative Inc. They are trying to make people big, and if they can't make people big, then what's the point of? And then what is their value proposition in signing new talent, other than the fact that this talent hasn't earned it, and that they're just going to take a payday because that's easy money, which we'll talk about in a second. Unashamed with the Robertson family, they don't need the Blaze.
I might say they somewhat do, just as it gives them a good tie into their core audience.
I don't think they need the Blaze because they could make it on Christian podcasting on their own. The Duck Dynasty brand was big enough to not need it. I think the Blaze is a good partnership for them because they can deal with a lot of the minutia of running a show, but I don't think they need the Blaze to succeed, but I also don't think they're going to succeed very much in Conservative Inc. in general. Like, it's not like their ratings are fantastic. Glenn, okay, that's another Glenn Beck program. Liz Wheeler, I'm actually surprised she signed on to the Blaze. Again, I feel like she could make it on her own, but she's also not made it on her own into very high ratings. Last I've checked, I could be wrong.
She is kind of like the poor man's Megyn Kelly.
Okay.
In terms of her presentations, she's like the Fox News bimbo that couldn't quite make it. Because again, Fox News was first in conservative simp culture, with every woman being like a blonde, like that. That Rupert Murdoch, he has a type. Like, they started that, and then everyone else has followed. But you're kind of like the one that couldn't make it on Fox News, and that's, I don't know.
She was on One American News,
Yes.
which kind of fell out. And then she strove out on her own because she was big. She was too big for them, which I agree with that assessment. And now she's with the Blaze. Maybe it was a good move for her, but it maybe comes across as a sign of weakness for her. Let's talk about Stu Does America. He needs the Blaze
sucks.
Because
he sucks. He has no talent.
Yeah, he is someone. He was a Glenn Beck acolyte and co-host on certain days of the week, as I understand. And him getting his own podcast is just a natural part of the cycle. But again, I don't think he would do much without the Blaze. He needs the Blaze because the Blaze is trying to make
the Toby Sumter of the Blaze media.
Wow. People get that reference in this audience. All right. But not everyone. Alex Stein, this guy would be, yeah, he
the
does.
Shtick is up.
Yeah, his act is so old. This is another mistake that conservative media made, where they thought that they could just take someone's YouTube channel and gift it to prime time with Alex Stein and think that it would go somewhere. It's not how YouTube works. So you can't just do that. You can't just repurpose a channel like that that has subscribers. It's not Facebook. And his content sucks. His numbers suck. We've done a live stream on this about a year ago, and they're not going to renew his contract because he was an abysmal failure with the Blaze, and he's going to just fade, and because there's no reason for him to exist in this space. So that is an abysmal failure. You have anything more to add?
No.
Sarah Gonzalez, I think she needs the Blaze. Now, is she successful otherwise? We can look that up.
I mean, wasn't she a product of like Glenn Beck?
She's done a lot of stuff on the Blaze. They had a show called The News and Why It Matters. But I don't trust her because she celebrated certain activities. So she has Sarah Gonzalez Unfiltered. Okay, I'm not getting good vibes from this YouTube channel. We got 136,000 subs, which is not bad. So let's look at. I'm not seeing anything that says that this is a great YouTube channel by the metrics. I mean, it's not far. Actually, it's much better on the metrics than a lot of the other people we've mentioned. Like her channel's in a much healthier state than say Reagan Conrad's The Comment Section, or another channel we're about to talk about who used to work with the Blaze. Um, so yeah, I'm looking at her numbers. Her videos don't do anything. Like she does clips, they don't do anything. So her clips are bad, but her live streams have some numbers, but her short video clips don't seem to be doing anything.
Again, she is kind of like a play. Again, it's a very monopolistic space with like low entry, so someone like her can kind of go in and like do some things. But again, she's what separates her from anything else?
This
What
YouTube
is her like claim to fame or her competitive advantage? I don't even know. I mean, she
this
kind of.
just to put some numbers on it, this YouTube channel is not bringing in enough money to sustain a living income. If I just based off of what I know about YouTube, yeah, she's not making a living income off of this. Like these videos are getting what, $5, $10 maybe? And then these streams might get a little bit more. Obviously, there's live reads involved, but this is not it's not doing the numbers. So conservative media can't make people successful if they're otherwise not able to succeed. So let's go back to the Blaze TV catalog. Normal World, I think that shows a failure.
The people on it would be successful, but the show itself isn't really necessary. Like Dave Landau's already a successful comic. He was on with Anthony Cumia. Obviously, he was on with Crowder. They had a falling out. And then obviously quarterback Garrett also on with Crowder, also had a falling out.
Did he? I thought he
Does
left.
other things. Oh yeah, he might have left, but
He
he
left
does
Peace
things.
because he works with Nerdrotic.
Yes, he also works with Nerdrotic. So he are like both of those two could just go off and do whatever it is they do when they're not doing anything with the Blaze. But I don't think the show is successful.
Yeah. And they're not going to renew him. Aaron McIntyre, I think, is wildly successful on YouTube. I think he's actually one of the best Blaze pickups in the last few years. He needs the Blaze to go from being a small time guy to a big time guy, and he's using the Blaze works for him. Like this is a success story for the Blaze.
I'm not.
But
I might disagree with that, considering the access that he has to much larger channels that are independent of the Blaze. Like he can get on with Dave Green, he can get on with Prudentialist. So some of his guests, he can. He is a good transition bridge to get his content in front of a boomer Gen X audience, but he would do very well with the youth.
he is doing
with or without them.
And I think the youth are watching him on YouTube and not on the Blaze.
So him being successful with the older audience is a product of him being on the Blaze. But as far as him being successful and like culturally relevant, that has nothing to do with him.
I think the Blaze gave him enough institutional credibility, but even if you look at his his live reads, they're not related to the Blaze content. Usually they're actually pretty niche and someone trying to reach a young male audience.
Yes.
So I would say this is a Blaze success story because I think they have helped Aaron McIntyre grow. I think he would say that, but I think Aaron McIntyre was genuinely talented and the Blaze recognized that, signed him accordingly, and are mutually benefiting from the ride up. So
and again, when I mentioned earlier about content that would do well in this media market, Aaron McIntyre's content is something that I would have in mind. Long form, more topical, more subject matter expert, more long form discussion, rather than just covering the daily headlines in the news. He does some of that, but again, that's not the bulk of his content.
Yeah, because most of the news just doesn't matter. Like what happens in Congress just usually does not matter.
Yeah, it's not, doing rah rah over some budget deal with Mike Johnson. It's more, I won't say esoteric, but it is more theory, practical application, talking about actual concepts, actually trying to learn something about the process rather than just, you know, doing a play by play of what's happening in the day to day. So
So
yes,
Pat Gray, this is another Glenn Beck acolyte. Uh, I don't think he's out. He's not outgrown the Blaze. That's why he's down here on the list. So I'll just say that. 0 Hour with James Polis. Like,
isn't
I
he
don't
their
see this as a
editor?
yeah, I don't see
He's
this as a regular enough podcast for them, but they definitely haven't made him big. He's had some pretty interesting episodes at times. Those times I haven't seen in a while, but like he had Doug Wilson on.
Yeah,
Interesting.
that was the alleged podcast that if Doug Wilson didn't denounce Ogden and all these dudes for bashing on Allie Beth Stuckey, they would rescind that podcast.
And this podcast
That was the
does
one.
this is like one of the most irrelevant Blaze podcasts. That's why it's all the way down here. Like this is not just a random order. Like these are in order from like what they push the most to what they push the least. And then we got Kevin Freeman again. That Economic War Room doesn't do much. Rick Burgess show, like from Rick and Bubba, they're trying to make it big on the national scene when they're like, I believe they're Alabama radio host, so they're not national. That I understand. Matt Kibbe, the Blaze has never made him a prominent figure after all these years, and yeah, the canceled show with the Wonderful World of Stu and In the Woods with Phil. Yeah, he has health problems, so he's not exactly going to be doing much. I want to show another name of who used to be on the Blaze, because these numbers are horrendous. So Chad Prather, I just learned today that he's no longer with the Blaze. I didn't realize that. He has 372 subscribers on YouTube,
Thousand
and
subs.
sorry, yeah, 372,000 subs on YouTube, and his we have a better channel. Like Evangelical Dark Web is doing better numbers than him. Not necessarily on every video, but the fact is we have like 8,200 subscribers, right? Or is it 88? I don't know. I should know, but I'm not looking at the moment. And we get better numbers than he does at 372,000 subscribers.
Yeah,
And
and
he can't even crack 1%.
this is someone that should not be doing long form content, and certainly not regularly. He seems to operate best in a short form content because my understanding he's kind of like a comedian, so he should be doing it, keeping it short, keeping it concise, and probably pursuing more of a Wade Stott strategy. And that's a guy that punches way above his weight class in terms
Yeah,
of his
he
channel
is
size.
talented. Yeah. And
So
he used to be audio weight on Steven Crowder, and he was one of the most talented people on that show. But yeah, Chad Prather, I guess the Blaze didn't want to re-sign him because his numbers weren't good. And despite being a Glenn Beck acolyte, that maybe that only gets you so far. And you run for governor of Texas, and that goes nowhere. But all this is about telling the story that Conservative Inc. does not make people successful, which begs the question of what do you need Conservative Inc. for? So, I mean, what is their value proposition? They can help someone go from small to medium big, and that's it. And even that, they have to take a chance. It's rolling a dice. Like the Blaze failed with turning Alex Stein into something bigger. They
well,
failed
again,
with
some
that.
people are good
And
at
he's
short
not
form.
talented.
Some people are good at long term. And again, Alex Stein was good at the short term, but obviously he had a window, and that window is probably closed at this point.
Well, he had a few jokes.
Yes.
They were funny at times. I'm not going to pretend like they were never funny, but he brought on this like internet grifter that's in like a bunch of like YouTube, like Subway YouTube acting. Like he did like street theater in New York City to play his wife's boyfriend. Like it got very cringy that he just devoted himself to these jokes. Yeah, another person to bring up, Elijah Schaefer. He got fired from the Blaze, but he has been very open about how much more money he makes not
Yes,
working at the Blaze because he doesn't have to share these commissions. And he can basically work for himself. Like you can make a lot more money if you were, because there's no barrier to entry to, like, podcasting is very easy. I use a service called Red Circle, and that's what hosts our podcast. That's it. Like, it's very easy. You just need a camera, a microphone that doesn't suck, and so you're not recording from a potato, and then you're good. And whatever ad reads you get to keep all of. The thing about the Blaze or the Daily Wire is they can get you better ads. And that is really their only value proposition, is that they can give you better ads, and maybe these have more dollar amounts. But I don't really know how true that is. Like McDonald's isn't advertising with the Daily Wire. And, they use, who was it that did that skit that showed the difference between like right-wing podcast ads and left-wing podcast ads?
Ryan Long.
Ryan Long. Okay. I want to give credit where credit is due. And he did that skit. It was like Patriot Water. And you're just slapping Patriot on something, and it's just junk in your attic.
Selling the survival kits, which again, junk, don't buy those. And again, who cares about the shelf life? But even a lot of the claims of how long the food lasts or how many servings you have is kind of dubious because it's not really a regulated market.
I'm not big
don't
on
buy that. Don't buy that.
Big on gold IRAs. I think that's a bad investment. It's one thing to buy physical gold.
Gold
IRA just.
I have more respect for the people that do the Alps affiliate, because at least you could argue nicotine has a innate benefit.
So this is a good question from Nobody Special. Says, how much of this, and it's a super chat, so thank you. How much of this is related to more people noticing?
I mean, that's certainly going to impact the younger generations. Because again, one thing I talk about in the article is that Daily Wire has a huge headwind from a generational standpoint, because their average viewers and like paying subscribers probably either older millennial or somewhere younger Gen X. They're probably around that age range, and they have zero clout when it comes to the younger generation. And that younger generation has rejected Zionism. They've rejected the idea of forever wars for a foreign country that's not their own. And, they're not going to be persuaded. And, that one day in October was a big wake-up call for a lot of people.
I think the noticing trend started before that.
Yes, but that was a huge accelerant.
Fair enough.
And you saw Ben Shapiro echoing ADL talking points. And then you just saw Jordan Peterson this past week, or literally last Thursday, released the paper with the NCRI, which is an ADL partner that does research firm. So you had 9 people, one background, sign their names on a paper that was calling Christ is King hate speech, with Jordan Peterson and a rabid Zionist token Christian on board.
And then there was like 8 or 9 Jews.
Yes. Well, 9 people.
Out of like 13 people.
Yes. So you had that happen. And again, at what point can you just, stop peeing on someone and telling them it's raining? And people see that. And obviously Jordan Peterson's associated with Daily Wire. His reputation, even amongst like more non-political centrist types, has gone down the toilet.
Yeah, he's someone that's just tanked his own reputation. And he's with the Daily Wire. So
yes.
The Daily Wire bought Jordan Peterson high, and I don't think his value's gone up. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong about, because people tend to fail upwards.
Well, his value has gone down, but his product has also depreciated hard too. You
can't just do 12 more rules for life.
Oh no. But the idea of if Jordan Peterson was supposed to be like their version of Joe Rogan, that just hasn't really metastasized as far as viral content goes. We've done the streams before where Jordan Peterson, he tries to like intellectually flex with Elon Musk. When you should be the one asking Elon Musk his opinion. You're interviewing Elon Musk. He is not interviewing you. But
Yeah,
Jordan
that was just
Peterson,
one of the worst things that I've ever watched. He just wanted to he wanted to like fluff his feathers like a peacock in front of Elon Musk and be told by Elon how pretty he was. So that was just that was hard. That was hard to watch. And yeah, we did that live stream, but yeah, that dude's very far from the kingdom of God, and then he pretends that he's wrestling with God. He's not. He's
like
actively
I'm
not.
almost surprised they haven't like hired like Daily Wire hasn't hired like Michaela Peterson to like, but you know,
Uh, he allegedly had some relations with Andrew Tate.
which is also kind of hilarious if you think about it. But yeah,
So
I mean they have a huge cultural headwind. And again, you're trying to sell a TV show called Pendragon to a demographic that you need to watch it, which is 18 to 45, when that 18 to 35 is anti-Zionist. So so your ability to monetize that show, even at like $15 a month for like a 1 month subscription to watch the show, you're not going to be able to recoup the investment on Pendragon, which because again, your brand is tainted.
yeah, and going back to what I was saying, like the Daily Wire is transitional at this point. Like Matt Walsh could leave, make more money. I believe, and Brett Cooper left and made more money. Candace Owens got fired and is making more money.
I even think that Knowles could do well on his own.
Like the only thing that Candace
Like,
Owens
and to
could be
know,
making more money with is the fact that she probably isn't getting good advertisers. Like that's probably the only real hit she took. But she's
now
probably
again,
making more money
now
otherwise.
I will give Jeremy Boring credit, even though he does a lot of gimmicks, like his ability to do the razor stunt and private label Daily Wire products was actually a good strategy.
You actually thought that was a good strategy? I think that was a bad strategy.
I think it's a gimmick, but I do think there is some utility in doing private label products. Now, again, the chocolate bars is a dumb gimmick that Steve Dace pushed, but yeah, that's a dumb gimmick. That's like conservative right wing ultra right beer, except with candy bars. But I mean, the private label razors that one might have been a decent one. I mean, I'd have to compare prices to what like a $30 for a set of 4 or 5. How that compares to like
Is there a
Harry's
Daily
razor.
Wire coffee?
Yeah, I don't know, but that would be pushing the limits. But I mean, there
Yeah.
is some benefit if you are able to pull that off. But and I guess they claim to have been successful with their Waymaker cigars or whatever they call it, but there is some utility in trying to do private label to kind of help monetize the brand. It also reduces, it's probably a good operational efficiency from a live read perspective, and that's one advantage that they could have had that if they pressed it. Because again, you don't want to be known for just hawking the worst products out there, which a lot of conservative podcasts do.
Yeah.
So I mean, doing private label, consumer items is actually a good idea.
Yeah, evangelical dark web coffee is better than Steve Day's coffee. Here's the thing. I'm not going to say I don't ever drink coffee, but I'm going to make a confession right here. I like the chocolate cold brew things that you can get at a grocery store. There, I said it. I
Well,
otherwise would not drink coffee.
I
I
mean,
can only do the cold brews at all, but I prefer the mocha cold brews.
hey, look, I'll confess now. I actually like First Cup coffee. I think it's a good. I actually do think it's a good
That's a Steve
coffee.
Day's coffee, or
That's the one that the Blaze Media pushes.
okay.
It actually is a good brand, and from a price standpoint, it's not overpriced. Pound for pound versus like other more premium brands, it's not overpriced.
Yeah. The TP USA sold Freedom water bottles. Is this serious? Did they actually do that? Another
Yeah,
thing
I
about
mean,
Blaze is their merch store sucks. And I don't know how much of that is on the people. Like Aaron McIntyre might be the only one who really tries to make good merchandise. But other than because he's inspired by like band tees from the 1980s. But so he actually tries. But yeah, there's the sense of monetizing the audience. And because that's what you have to do for podcasts, and it works. Like live reads of podcasters works. Otherwise, they wouldn't charge such high premiums for this. But anyway, this is such a transitional thing that Daily Wire, they needed to shoot their shot, become they need to become the ESPN of the content of Conservative Inc. They failed to do that.
Oh, keep in mind they claim to have made 20 million selling razors. So again, that's what 10% of your revenue comes from selling like merchandise. So again, it was a successful strategy from a monetization standpoint, but again, that's not going to help pay for your Pendragon.
That's not going to make you the ESPN of Conservative Inc.
No,
because ESPN has all this competition. Like Pat McAfee was so big that ESPN basically just bought him, and they caused a lot of internal drama doing that because he's again so big he doesn't actually need ESPN, but he just benefits from the institutional credibility. Whereas there's a lot of competition in the sports talk world, and YouTube just made it exponential. So, but even if you're a small person, being hired by ESPN is the big time. Like ESPN is still the big time in sports media. I don't think that's changed yet. Fox Sports, they tried to be like the edgy version of ESPN, and apparently that's resulted in some salacious lawsuits. But this did not translate to conservative media. Instead, conservative media is basically like brands like Bon Appetit. I saw something about that earlier this month, whereas this was like a food content network, but all the personalities outgrew them, and left them, and they could make money without them, and they had no real brand. And that is the thing with the Daily Wire and the Blaze. They have no real brand, or the brand that they do have is tanking. Like the Blaze, I think, is tanking as a brand. The Daily Wire has alienated young people because of their obsession with Zionism. So those are some thoughts about that. I don't know if you have a take on that. And
I mean, Blaze also has a problem with attracting that younger audience. They're kind of going in that Fox News direction.
And again, because they haven't.
The young audience is not going for necessarily daily. You need to watch your news on the daily. They're going more for the authenticity, the long form, and yeah, there's short form too. But
some people are good at either long form or short form.
But again, if you look at Conservative Inc., there's a lot of markets that they didn't tap into, like the red pill manosphere. Again, there's 2/3 rails that you cannot touch in Con Inc., and one is noticing, and the other is women. You're not allowed to confront those two topics. You can't confront feminism in Conservative Inc. And that's why they're getting their lunch eaten by all these red pill podcasts, because they refuse to talk about it.
Yeah, and even like the Christian Bro podcasts are actually like eating at their heels as well. So, and again, they had too many rules, and they try to act like large corporations when you're not at ESPN's level. You're not even at Fox News's level.
And I can say I did have an insider that gave me that tip on the second on the you can't confront feminism in Con Inc. That I had I won't say who, but I did have an insider say that to me.
Yeah, because
that's
have some
the one thing you cannot talk about.
Yeah, so you have some birdies. I have some birdies as well, and apparently our birdies don't touch. Interesting comment that I should get Farmer Bills to sponsor. I have actually bought and tried their product before. That would be a good sponsor. So it'll be interesting because I'm going to the Right Response conference, and it'll be interesting to see if any, partnerships emerge for Evangelical Dark Web or for my other business. I'd be excited for stuff to arise out of that because there's a business owners lunch that I'm going to at that. So it'll be interesting. Hopefully some partnerships can get worked out because like-minded people should work together, support the independent economy. And I sort of like the message of Andrew Torba. So maybe the Farmers Bills people will be there. I hope so. They'd be a good fit. So with that said, like I said, if I haven't made it clear enough, I think, or actually one point that we have to talk about is that a lot of people in conservative media are failed Hollywood people. They couldn't quite make it big in they're theater kids in a way that couldn't make it big.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
Steven
and again,
Crowder,
yeah,
to
technically
some
Matt
degree,
Walsh
Brett
and Knowles.
Cooper, really Walsh,
I believe so.
Jeremy Boring especially.
Yes, I mean, keep
So
in mind Jeremy Boring's background was there's this Hollywood conservative group called Friends of Abe, and he kind of because of the 2016 election, he pretty much ran it into the ground and dissolved it. And because he took the never Trump stance rather than being more, I won't say apolitical, but like he should have been like, rah rah, we're gonna support the party regarding the 2016 election, but instead he went full never Trumper and tanked that project and dissolved it.
yeah, that'll
So
do it.
that's how he got his start, or in terms of like the political space.
Yeah. So a lot of people in conservative media, they want to be actors in Hollywood. And thus, Jeremy Boring, in my opinion, was right to go down the Hollywood path for the Daily Wire. He just isn't talented. Which do I have a clip that I want to share? Actually, let's do some look at some tweets. Because I got some interesting takes that I wanted to share. Let's look at this one tweet and then we'll kind of wrap up. So this is a, Daily Wire fan account. It's like the problem with Brett Cooper isn't just that she's being a little snot rag. You just know she's doing more than what's on the surface. You know she's getting into the Groiper sphere. Know she's working with Candace. I think that part's actually correct. No, she's funneling and fueling every snippet of destructive Daily Wire gossip to prime outlets. I don't think that's true at all. You mentioned the
The
Axios part, like
Yeah,
the
that
Daily
seems
Wire,
like
like
Jeremy
hates that.
Boring's. That seems like Jeremy Boring's connection. He feeds stuff to Axios about Daily Wire, and he's trying to do a pump and dump.
She it continues. She's a highly valuable pawn to those who seek to topple all the great things conservatives have built the past 10 years, and she knows it, and she flirts with them openly. I just gotta absolutely laugh at that tweet because that to me is insane. Imagine being a simp for the Daily Wire.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
So I also wanted to show this. This is Candace Owens' reaction to the news. Said exactly 1 year ago to the day I found out I was being let go from the Daily Wire. Life comes at you fast. Today on the show, we discussed the announcement that Jeremy Boring is leaving his role at the Daily Wire. There is much to be said.
yeah, I'm sure there is, and keep in mind, you don't leave that position because you were doing a fantastic job.
Yeah,
And
this
keep in
is
mind,
someone who got fired.
Daily Wire, $200 million in revenue. You have a giant brand, and put aside the subscriber and brand issues with the whole Candace Owens and stuff. $200 million, 10% or so is based on merchandise sales, and then you have $1 billion valuation. That sounds like a company that should be doing an IPO. Instead, they're raising capital.
Yeah,
You should
that
be paying off your early investors with stocks and going public, not
not doing
not
another
raising
round
capital.
of venture capital funding.
Yes, in
Yes.
which you're diluting your investors.
This is Brett Cooper's reaction with a GIF of Jimmy
Fouling.
Fallon, not Kimmel. I was gonna say Kimmel, but then I read Fallon was on the thing. Uh, just
I'm not
turning
even.
and smiling, and it's like genuinely excited to see where Ben and Caleb take the company next. That is some shade right there.
I mean, she's a 20-something-year-old woman, so she's going to be a little catty.
I
I
like
would,
it. I
I don't.
like it. It's sufficiently catty. It's sufficiently female. sufficient female energy there. I like it. She's focusing on the positive and not dunking on Jeremy Boring directly, but she's definitely dunking on Jeremy Boring because, again, he was fired. Like you don't voluntarily step down from a CEO role like this. He is getting relegated, and they're like, you better finish this project and it better work, or and not even or. It's not an ultimatum. It's a and you're done. That's my read of the situation.
And Pendragon's just not going to work. Again, even if it's good, it won't do the magic that they need it to do.
Yeah, because their problems aren't their problems are they have a bad reputation as a studio. Man, I'm pretty sure I have something for this, like, but they have a bad reputation as a studio, and that'll do them in because Mr. Bertram, I think, kind of solidifies that reputation. There's no coming back from that. So, I'll do a last call for questions. I don't have much more to say, and we can.
Yeah, I mean, I do think the overall atmosphere is bright and something to look forward to as far as what the industry is going to be in the next couple of years.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll add to that because Conservative Inc. was useful for a transitionary time of getting people out of the Fox News pipeline and into something much bigger, into something more omnipresent, into the fifth generation of warfare. It was useful for that, but as it turned out, you don't need a company to succeed in this space. You don't need to be on someone else's brand to succeed. You can actually succeed on your own if you are talented enough. And most of you aren't talented. I'm just dooming, but yeah, there was a lot of people. Like I know some people that do not have the talent to make it in this space, but they've been trying for several years at this point. So I at least this channel's small as it is, it's got very healthy metrics. Like we exceed the 10% rule, which is my judgment for YouTube channel's health. We exceed that. Chad Prather, who's no longer with the Blaze, gets worse numbers than us, and that's just insane. And he had the Blaze backing him for several years. So this model comes with way too much overhead, and it's too much of a gamble. But the Wild West, you're gambling, but at least only you lose and not these companies with larger overheads. It just does not work anymore.
Got one right here. I don't think we discussed this super
Okay.
chat, but we have is this just a division of assets by Daily Wire to protect assets from impeding lawsuits? And I'm assuming this has to do with the Pendragon division. I mean, again, I imagine anytime they create an entity, it's its own entity, like it's Pendragon Cycle LLC or whatever. And obviously
that's how it should work.
And Bent Key is kind of a separate entity from Daily Wire, even though they're owned by the same parent company and same umbrella. So I imagine there's a lot of division. There's a lot of lawsuit protections that are in the corporate structure. So I don't imagine Daily Wire is really in legal trouble. I mean, they might have mounting bills if they're, competing in lawsuits with like Candace Owens still over like gag orders. So there might be that kind of stuff that's, some legal challenges there, but I don't quite know what legal hurdles they have.
Yeah. I don't know how to answer that question because it's there's some things about Daily Wire drama that I just can't remember. Like I can't remember all their lawsuits, all their.
But obviously, one problem was that Jeremy Boring was essentially taking from the business and investing in his vanity projects. So he needed to go because again, they can't afford to be a Hollywood studio. They don't have the revenue.
Yeah, or the distribution, really. Now they have distributed movies into theaters, but and Matt Walsh's movie was successful, but they're not pursuing that strategy of low budget movies that make money that people want to see.
I mean, keep in mind the box office for like conservative films is somewhere between $10 and $20 million. And Angel Studios hasn't quite learned that lesson either.
Yeah. So, all right. I think that's all the questions we have. If you like this kind of content, you can support independent media on your own at evangelicaldarkweb.org. Linked in the description below to our patron-like system. Also have a book, Winning Not Winsome, 10 Commandments of Spiritual Warfare. And that is available as well. And you can get that on Amazon, linked in the description and anything else to plug?
Yeah, no, not now.
Just realized that my camera was mirrored. Like, I don't know why that's a default setting, because no one wants that at all. Anyway, so alrighty then. That's all I got for today. My name's Reyes, the Evangelical Dark Web. Have a blessed day. Stay based. Christ is King, and we will catch you on the next one.